Yes, hi, my name is Chuck Tekula. I wrote this book, The Hidden Kingdom, the United States and Biblical Prophecy, the Meaning of September 11th. I wrote it through the 1980s and 90s and decided to revise it and publish it right after 9/11 because in it I had not predicted, but pointed to the fact that chapter 18 of the book of Revelations, talking about the destruction of the great city of Babylon, the harlot city, was New York City, and that I had somehow known that ever since I was young, or it seemed like that to me. Now, I was raised atheist in Levittown in the 1950s, born in 1951. My parents were original owners of a house at 103 Bloomingdale Road, Levittown, Long Island, New York. And 90% of the families in Levittown were Catholic from the city, mostly from Brooklyn, the Bronx. They were, almost all of the fathers were World War II veterans. They bought the houses on the GI Bill, no down payment, and very low payments. But for some reason, my father decided he was an atheist, even though he had been raised Roman Catholic. My mother on her side, my father was Czechoslovakian, actually Slovakian, and my mother was Napolitano from Naples, Italy. Her family was Roman Catholics, devout, some of them. But they decided that they were atheists, and there was really no reason behind it. And I followed in their footsteps. I followed their instructions. My religion was their religion, even though it was no religion. And there were no other atheist kids. My sister decided that she was going to become a Catholic and get the sacraments of the church with her friend's family, lived behind us, and got all the sacraments. But she started when she was 8 years old. The peer pressure was so strong. We were surrounded by families who sent their kids to Catholic school. And so I was the only atheist kid. And I stayed that way. And when I got religion, finally came in to become a Christian through dreams and visions that I had as a young adult, which is pretty common for that to happen, but not common to happen to someone who is no religion at all, there's no God, and turned my whole world upside down. But when I read the Bible, I read it incessantly, but I read it as a college student, because I was a good college student, very good at reading, and I read it differently than what everybody else was saying. And it appeared to me, if there was some prophecy to this book at all, the Bible, the books of the Bible, that would have some relevance to our modern day. And it would seem that this city in Revelations, which was the center of world trade, which it describes in chapter 17 and 18, pictured as a woman standing on many waters, holding a bowl in her hand with a crown on her head, dressed in a robe, and the robe was red, white, and blue. It was scarlet and purple and linen. And the purple is actually the purple of the blue mussel, deep blue, navy blue. Red, white, and blue. How could it be otherwise? Standing on the Statue of Liberty. So it appeared to me to be obvious, to where now it's still not obvious to people. They say, no, it can't be. This all happened by our own will and our own decisions and normal political evolution. But if there's a God, and He knows everything, and He's in eternity, even though He's not making everything happen, He's not making all the decisions, He knows what's going to happen. And so this is what happened, that a great country came about, great center of commerce, and it's decided to allow it to be destroyed. I originally tried to sell the book on my own print-on-demand before there was print-on-demand. I had a website that my son and his friend built for me, and I was offering the manuscript that I had written for $5, and I would have it bound at Staples, and I would send it to people. $5, I would make maybe $2 on it, which is what you make on a book anyway. If you have a regular book, you don't make much money. I only make $2 if you buy one of these. If you get the print on demand, I make $1. And it's also, I'll give the little secret, it's also on Google Books. If you Google it on Google Books, I think the whole thing is on there now. They had most of it on for a long time, but I think the whole thing is there now. So you can see it for free. I'm not interested in getting rich off this book or even making money on it. I would love to have people respond to it, to see the reasoning behind it. It's just simple reasoning. But the reason I didn't start writing, I started writing before 9/11, so that's not why I was writing it. I was writing it because what I had also seen in the Old Testament, this great nation that was going to come about through Abraham and Isaac and Jacob's sons, Joseph and his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, that these promises that are in Genesis, and especially at the end of Genesis, where Jacob prophesies over the 12 tribes, and then at the end of Deuteronomy, where Moses prophesies over the 12 tribes, when you get to Joseph, it's the United States. I'm not going to quote it here. You can look it up yourself. You can read it. I don't have the sightings here. If you're interested, you can look it up. But it describes the United States so much so the ones in Deuteronomy, which is the frontispiece of my book, I put side by side the prophecies of Moses from Deuteronomy over the tribe of what's going to happen in the end times in the tribe of Joseph, and the first stanza of America the Beautiful, and they perfectly dovetail together. They describe the same nation. And okay, you could say that I'm just surmising this, I'm just putting together these pictures that really have nothing to do with each other. But if it's said at the end, in the last days, there would come this great nation called the United States, would you pay attention to it? Because it's exactly what it says. It's translated company of nations or commonwealth of peoples. And it's expressed to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob and to Joseph. The birthright was that the promised land was going to be this great company of nations. Company, union, united, nations, states. It will become a great united states. And it's not only in the Old Testament, it's in the New Testament, where Jesus, at the end of Mark, I think it's Mark 22, he's telling about the end days, and what he says is that before this all happens, this will happen after the times of the Gentiles have been fulfilled. And then in Romans 11, I think it's 11:25, Paul, after explaining how a branch of the true tree has been cut off and the Gentiles may have been grafted in, and you can't pride yourself over those because the branch doesn't pride itself over the root, especially a grafted in branch. He doesn't say that's what's happened. He said, if that has happened, how can you pride yourself over the root, which is the Jews? Well, the split happened in the 8th century, or 7th century BC, or before that, where the split between the northern and the southern tribe, the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom was Israel, the southern kingdom was Judah. Israel, the northern kingdom, is the lost tribes, and they are somewhere out there in the world. Nobody knows who they are. And the prophecies are on them. That if you were going to try and interpret this book and see it be fulfilled in the world, you have to look for these people emerging in the world as this great nation that's going to be a company of nations or a United States. And nobody knows where the Anglo-Saxons came from. That Nachmanides, the great Jewish rabbi from whenever, the 12th century, 11th century A.D., said they're among the Celts. Oh, actually before that, it was like the 2nd century A.D., 3rd century A.D., in very early days. He wrote that the lost tribes are among the Celts. And we know from where they were taken, they were deported to Assyria. There were two great deportations, great captivities. There was the captivity of Israel, where the Assyrian Empire came in 3 successive waves and took the important people of every one of the tribes and put them somewhere near the Caucasus Mountains, between the Caspian and the Black Sea. And we know this happened, and we know also that the people from those regions dispersed throughout the world. They migrated throughout the world. So they're somewhere out here. How do you find them biblically, prophetically? You look for these prophecies to be fulfilled on them. And they have been in the United States. And now the two countries are inexorably joined together, United States and Israel. Look what's going on now. It's the fulfillment. They know it's the fulfillment of the prophecies. But the fulfillment of the promised land has already happened. It's America. It's done. The promise has been fulfilled. This is the great fulfillment of all the prophets and the law that has filtered down through the centuries into civilization and has come about here. We have reached the pinnacle of humanity, of civilization here in the United States. The world doesn't get any better than this. And we're on a decline now because of what's happening politically in the world. It was prophesied to happen after the downfall of great Babylon. The great city of Babylon would fall down, and the beast that she was riding on and suppressing into the sea would arise out of the sea. The old empires would arise. It's happening. That's what's happening. And it's great news because it means that the next thing that happens, the 18th chapter of Revelations, is like the second to last chapter. I think there's 1 or 2 more chapters. And what happens then is that in the middle of this great conflagration, the apocalyptic battle between all the nations, descends the great city of Jerusalem, the new Jerusalem with the Lord on the throne, and establishes the kingdom. So the word is to get ready for the kingdom, not try and make this world into the kingdom. Try and make the world within you the kingdom. And what is that world? That is to love your neighbor as yourself. That is to realize that the blessed ones of the earth, as in the Beatitudes, are the poor and the hungry and the naked and the disenfranchised and those who long for righteousness' sake and the peacemakers. The peacemakers, not the war makers, the peacemakers. And what is it to love your neighbor as yourself? It's no great mystery. And practically nobody does it. Nobody does it continually. It's impossible to do it on this earth continually. Because what it means is you don't treat anybody as them, the others. Who do you treat as yourself? Who do you love as yourself? You love your family, your children, your sisters and brothers, truly, your family, and maybe your best friends, your extended family, that great support group that you have, and support you. Because if your son or your daughter became a drug addict and stole from you, which is the most common thing that addicted people do, they steal from their families, and there's reasons behind that, and it's forgivable because of the reasons, because the household has always been there. All the assets of the household have been there if they got sick, to get them better. Well, when they're strung out on drugs, they're sick. And their body and everything in them is crying out, why aren't they making me better? So instead of saying, Mom, I need drugs, or Dad, I'm strung out, or alcohol, or whatever, you take what's in the household because it feels right. It's always been done before. And the first reaction, unless it happens repeatedly, your parents, your family, is not going to have you arrested. They are going to take care of you. They're going to get you in a rehab and pray and hope that you get better. But if your neighbor's kid broke into your house, or whoever, some other family's kid broke into your house and stole from you, first thing you do is call 911 and have him arrested, and you go testify against him in court. Because you're not treating him, you're not loving them as yourself. You're loving your family as yourself. You're loving your children as yourself. You're loving your neighbors as somebody else. Well, that's the culture of this world. And it's everywhere. Even in tribal societies where they treated the tribes as themselves, as the family. The other tribes were the others, and they deserve to die and be driven off the ends of the earth. It's still going on that way. That's the culture of this world. And we see it happening in other places in the Middle East, and we blame them for it, but we do it here. We do it to each other. And that's not the kingdom of God. So to get ready for what's coming is to get ready for that world and to recognize how wonderful a place the kingdom of God will be on this earth. So until next time, if anybody cares to make a comment, and I'll get back to you. And you can buy this, you can look it up, but I would love to hear what you think about it. The Hidden Kingdom by Charles F. Tequila Jr. Till next time.